Tonight, a grand jury has indicted a Cobb County man on murder charges in the death of his toddler. Ross Harris is accused of leaving his 22-month-old son Cooper in the back seat of a hot car for 7 hours. There are 8 counts in all, 3 of them murder as well as child cruelty. In addition, Ross Harris now facing charges of exploitation of children and dissemination of harmful material to minors. Harris claims he forgot to drop Cooper off at a daycare on that June day when the little boy died.
For more analysis on this big story tonight, we are joined by longtime Atlanta criminal defense attorney Pate. It's good to have you here.
Great to be here.
Let's talk about this large indictment. We've got 8 counts with malice murder, felony murder, cruelty to children in the 1st and 2nd degree, and dissemination of harmful material to minors. Again, a wide-ranging indictment. What do you make of how wide scope it is?
Well, the district attorney charged him with everything they could possibly think of in relation to this case. It is common for a district attorney to charge someone with both malice murder and felony murder because if they have any issue about proving an intent to kill, then the jury could go ahead and still convict him on the felony murder for the underlying felony, and he can still get life in prison. Now, I think they added these charges that were related to the sexting simply to make sure that they could introduce that evidence at his murder trial. It would otherwise not necessarily be relevant. So I think the DA said, look, if we want to get this evidence in, the best way to do it is to go ahead and charge him with the sexting. Now, I expect the defense will try to keep that out and maybe sever that count from the indictment, but they're probably not going to be successful.
Lawyers are also working with a timeline here of 2, possibly 3 weeks with respect to the death penalty. I know I'm asking you to get that crystal ball out, but how do you think this will play out?
Death penalty is a difficult decision for any district attorney. Vic Reynolds has a lot of experience. I know he will carefully evaluate the case, but you'll hear from any district attorney that the #1 thing to consider in determining whether they're asking for the death penalty is, do we have a strong case on guilt or innocence? If the evidence is overwhelming, and given the type of case this is, that he literally, at least he's being charged with leaving his son to bake in a hot car while he's texting underage females, that's the kind of case that many people think should call out for the death penalty.
We haven't heard the district attorney, assistant district attorneys talking much about Leanna Harris, the toddler's mother. There's no time pressure there.
Right.
But what could we see play out? Witness now, possibly? Possible defendant?
All of that is possible, but she is not out of the woods yet. I think we've heard from the DA that their investigation is ongoing, and I expect that it would be. They were under a time pressure to go ahead and indict Mr. Harris because if they didn't within 90 days, they had to give him a bond. But they can continue to look into the case. They can change the indictment to add her later. They could work out some sort of deal with her to testify as a prosecution witness. That remains to be seen.
A moment ago, you mentioned changing the indictment. What about the potential for changing the venue, changing the location for this trial?
I think a lot of people are expecting that, but the challenge here is finding a jurisdiction who hasn't heard about the case, or certainly will not have heard about it by the time it goes to trial. I expect the defense lawyers would prefer to be somewhere other than Cobb County. It's usually a conservative jurisdiction. But the test is ultimately going to be not have you heard about the case, Mr. Juror, but can you still give us an unbiased view? Can you still be objective? And they may be able to do that in Cobb County.
All right. Paige Pate, good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you,
Interesting
Melissa.
perspective.